Jamie, how did you decide to actually go into medicine?
Oh,
Start
off with a bang.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that story, actually, because so the reasons why I'd have given you about 20 years ago would be very different to the reasons I'll give you now. So when I was at school, it would have been the early 1990s. My parents were involved, they started up a IT recruitment business. They were very successful with what they did. They got into a partnership with someone else. And then I recognised in 1992 that they basically got screwed over for a lot of money and their business almost went under.
Wow.
And during that time, they literally were doing everything they could just to survive, because at the time, me and my brother were at private school, so they're trying to fund our private school, also cost of living, etc., etc. And then I just saw the fact that they were never at home. They were always stressed, and even the time we spent with them, I could tell that they weren't really present with me and wanting to play and all those sort of things, play football in the garden.
Did they set that up together?
Yeah, they set up together. Yeah. And so what happened is that was kind of the time when I was doing GCSEs at school, and I really enjoyed the sciences. It's a classic interview answer: you enjoy the sciences, you want to help people, right? But I genuinely found a real interest in biology and chemistry. I wasn't really much into the English literature. I was much more of a science sort of person. And I remember having a chat with my stepfather. My real father does something completely different, but I was having a chat with my stepfather, and he says, you know what, if you enjoy the sciences, you could do a lot worse than being a doctor. Okay, because think about it, yes, the training's hard, but they've got job security, they're recession proof. So if the economy goes down, you're going to have a job. And look at what cars they're driving on Harley Street. You can build up a private practice, you can be very successful. And if you enjoy the science as well, it sounds like an ideal opportunity for you. Yeah. So at that point, that kind of got the trigger and thought, okay, that sounds interesting. At that time, a few of my peers at school were going for medical places or thinking about a career in medicine. And I just thought, well, that seems a reasonable solution. I don't mind working hard, especially on things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And that was almost certainly the reason why I did medicine.
And so what would you say is the main difference in perception of what you kind of were told then and what you thought medicine would be versus what it ended up being? Or was there even a difference? Yeah,
so I think what I thought is that I would have security and I would be really in a great position financially. I wouldn't have to worry about money. I'd be able to have exactly the life I wanted to have. I'd be able to go on the holidays, etc. The reality is very different. Now, maybe that was more towards the reality when I started at medical school, but times have changed and the world has changed. So whereas when I started embarking on a medical career, say 25 years ago, even more when I was thinking about it at school, the consultants were well off. They were, they didn't have to worry about money. They were able to afford nice houses, etc. The money wasn't never the driver. Yeah. It was always the bonus. It was actually the trade-off between, if I'm going to work hard for the next 15 years to try and get to that training, become a consultant, have the training, go through the exams and go through that really tough training process, and at the same time, not go out with my friends on a Saturday night because I've got exams to revise for, then what I expected as a reasonable payoff would be a comfortable lifestyle. So that was kind of what I thought going through medical school, medical training. And then I became a consultant 10 years ago. And at that point, I was really amazingly ecstatic. I had for years built up to that pinnacle moment of that consultant post. Yeah. And then to be fair, few years into it, it was quite challenging because you're transitioning from that trainee role where a lot of you are protected from the NHS functioning and the politics and the bureaucracy and all the admin. Yeah. And then a few years into consultant post, things started to unravel because then I thought to myself, okay, I'm a consultant now, but this is not what I expected it to be. Firstly, mortgage prices, house prices, particularly living in Southeast England and London, are high. I can't really afford the house that I thought I would be getting. Yeah. I have to compromise on a smaller house. And it was quite weird because there were colleagues or friends in other industries who did nowhere near the amount of training, and they were able to afford much nicer places than I had. And at the same time, when I started my medical training, there was a lot of extra paperwork with appraisals and everything else coming into play. everything was starting to become more of a tick box exercise. So if patients come to theatre, you have to do a theatre checklist. If I work on the ICU, if you want to intubate a patient, you have to go through a checklist. If you want to extubate, take a breathing tube out of a patient, you have to go through a check. Everything came tick box exercises, checklists. And then what I recognised is I'm really, really passionate. I'm quite creative. I love being creative. But I recognised, particularly in the consultant role, is that the more creative I try to be, the more the system seemed to push back. So if I had a good idea about something, I would have to go through layers of form filling, meetings to try and justify things, only be told no. We're not doing it because either we don't think it's important enough or there's no funding. You're just going to have to just do it. And so what happens is all of that creative energy and that passion that I used to have has kind of dissipated, because all of that energy has become energy of now frustration. And at the same time, I just going to work day by day, and I didn't feel at that point I was a doctor. I genuinely believe that. I felt that I had to fall into a certain way of practice, which is some of it which I agreed with, but some of it I didn't agree with. I felt that despite me having an opinion about something or trying to innovate and do something extraordinary, there was too much resistance to that. And even get to the point where voicing an opinion which might be contrarian to what other people are thinking was often met not always with support, should we say. I'm not blaming anyone, because I think everyone is in this survival mindset, which we can talk about after. But I do think that was a big cause of frustration. But there are other causes as well, which we can explore.
What would you say are the other causes?
Yeah, so the other causes are, number one, financially not where you want to be. So what happened there is I wanted to, I didn't go into medicine to be rich. I think most doctors don't go into medicine to be rich. But as I said, there has to be a payoff for the amount of training that you go through. If you can become a creator, launch a YouTube channel at the age of 18, and you can monetize it straight away, and you can have an amazing lifestyle. So fine, okay, that might be for some people, that might be for, but it might not be for other people. But the people that are genuinely interested in doing medicine, they're putting their lives. There's a massive amount of sacrifice that they're giving to the career, and if people aren't getting back the lifestyle that they feel that they're accustomed to, and again, I don't think that anyone deserves to necessarily have, but some people feel that they have a level of expectation. So what people then do is they say, right, well, I still deserve that. I still deserve to have that nice car or that nice house, or even not a nice house, even a house which is for a family of four, say, which is comfortable. I deserve to have that. The only way I can do that, my NHS salary is not meeting those expenses. The only way I can fund that is to work extra shifts. So I'm working extra NHS work. I'm going to go into the private sector. I'm going to work harder. Now, the problem with doing that, of course, is that you've got a certain amount of hours that you need to fulfill with a standard NHS contract. But then if you're working beyond that, all of a sudden you're doing a lot more work and a lot less living. And that's where the work-life balance comes into question. The other thing is when you become a consultant, so everything as a trainee is geared towards becoming a consultant. When you become a consultant, a lot of colleagues just want to continue to grow in their careers, and the growth opportunities, the traditional growth opportunities that are available, which are research, hospital management or medical education, don't suit the majority of people. So people feel stagnated, or they feel that they're not growing or contributing in their own unique way in medicine, and that's a source of frustration, because then what people then do is they end up going to work and just existing. And there's a lot more to life than just existing. So there's that as well. And then, to be perfectly frank, I found, and it's funny actually, I put my life on hold in terms of getting married and having kids to the point where I felt more secure. In other words, I was confident that I'd get a consultant post in a desirable location. So because up to that point, trainees are moving all around the country to take posts up that suit their needs. Well, if I'm going to grow, there's a location that I have in mind which I would like to live in, but I can't guarantee you as a trainee that I'm actually going to be a consultant there. So I put a lot of sort of getting married and starting a family on hold, and then so I got married a couple of years before becoming a consultant, had my first child who's now 10, at the time when I just became a consultant. But then I recognized that the balance between financial pressures, feeling unfulfilled in my job, not being able to grow, and then in addition to that, I'm working harder in the private sector because I'm trying to maintain a certain lifestyle and be able to go on holidays at the right time, etc. And now I've got the whole additional challenging of parenting, which no one ever teaches you to be a parent. And honestly, I found that a really challenging time because we recognise 4 or 5 years into the birth of our first son, that our son was more challenging. There were more meltdowns, and I didn't know what to do. My wife got stressed, and she didn't know what to do. And obviously, there's no manual. And I started reading a lot about it. We took him to various therapists and specialists. And the bottom line is, he was diagnosed with ADHD age 6. Mm-hmm. And then I recognized, oh my God, right? Okay, well, this is going to be awful because this is more challenging now. And how am I going to cope with everything? And so I ended up, reading a lot about ADHD, and it requires a lot of patience and a lot of persistence and almost like a different way of being. But then if the rest of your life is stressed, it's very difficult to then step into if you have if you have a really stressful work day in the ICU and you come home and then you've got to deal with a temper tantrum because a child can't detach from a game or a screen, I just couldn't cope with that. To be honest, I tried to do my best, but I often lost it with my son as well. I ended up going out of the house just to decompress. And that's the other thing as well. Only when I became a consultant did I think, well, I need a release from all this. So that's when I started running. Okay, so that was my get out, my release. And then it all unraveled about 3 years ago, because at that point I got injured. We decided to upsize house. Okay, so we took on a bigger mortgage, so that was largely interest only. And at that point I had to then move out of our old house because we exchanged on a property that hadn't been built yet or was in the process of being built, and had to move in with the in-laws. And then that was just the final straw. I got into a lot of conflict with my wife and my in-laws as well. And the bottom line is I almost got divorced over the whole issue. And I remember 3 years ago, it all came to a head because I just got to the point where I wasn't mentally in the right place. I thought to myself, oh my God, like this is everything. I've worked so hard to be where I've got to, and I just can't cope anymore. I'm trying to do my best. I'm not a bad person. I just can't cope. And when I try and voice that to my wife or my parents or my friends, it was just very much a case, the response I often got was very much a case of, well, that's just life, get on with it. It's the same for everyone. And I just feel that I had no support. And it got to the point where I remember ringing on my mum's doorbell one evening. I had a big fight with the in-laws. My wife didn't want to know. I regret that now because my parents saw me my kids saw me not in a great way. Rang on my mum's doorbell, and she opened the door, and it just all released. I couldn't speak for an hour or so. And my poor mum, my dad was out my stepfather was out for the evening, and she just didn't know what to do. She just said, "Oh, Jamie, I can't believe, I hate seeing you like this. I'm helpless. I don't know what to do. There must be a better way." I mean, they tried to help. They suggested that I check into the Priory, right? Okay, because I needed help. Yeah. So when your loved ones are doing that, where do you go? And then I thought to myself, well, I didn't feel confident or trusting enough in the system that were going to support me as well. So one of the options I did explore was going to occupational health and just declaring that I'm mentally not well and I feel stressed and burnt out.
How did the NHS respond? Was there any support from the
No,
NHS?
They didn't respond at all. I didn't go to them. Okay, so this is what happened. So I thought to myself, well, I could go to occupational health. I could lay it all out on the table to them. Yeah. Now, there's one of two things they can do.
And you were still working during this time?
I was still rostered to work at this time. Okay, I thought, well, there's one of two ways this can go about. They'll either give me that genuine support and help me through that, or it will go on my record and I'll be restricted to practice and I'll be under the scrutiny to tick certain boxes, be supervised for a certain amount of time. I thought to myself at that point, I'm not mentally unwell here. I'm just struggling a bit because of life pressures and career pressures, and I can't find the right supports. And I don't want to risk going to occupational health and going to the NHS and revealing all, because I thought, well, this could potentially just exacerbate the problem. I didn't trust the system, if I'm being honest with you.
And did you have any colleagues who had gone through similar situations, or that you felt open to talk to as well?
Interesting. No, I didn't actually at that point, because again, you just don't know who people chat all the time. You just don't know who's going to say anything. So this is maybe one of the reasons why I ended up where I did.
Yeah.
I just didn't know who to go to, and I felt very isolated.
And so what happened? What was the next step then?
So yeah, the next step then, I just thought, you know what? I asked myself a question: am I safe looking after patients?
Yeah.
Because that's what it boils down to. I thought to myself, I just need a bit of time off. I don't know at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to call in sick for a couple of weeks. I'll make some excuse. I'll say that I've got a virus or I feel unwell. Don't have to go into any more detail. I can't remember what excuse I made. I just said I was sick. I went off sick, and
had you ever heard of stories of other clinicians, consultants burning out at this point, or was anyone speaking
really.
about it openly?
I'll be honest with you, not really. No. So I just thought, you know what? No one's helping me here.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to help myself. So the first thing I did is call off sick, just escape from that environment. I didn't even tell my family. I just said, look, I just went out for walks. I spent a lot of time in the gym. I was kind of like injured, but I was still able to do upper body work. I just spent a lot of time on my own. I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts and listening to music and trying to just detach myself from the situation. And then after a few days, I came to myself and I thought, you know what? This is where I am now. Okay. Where I am now is based on my approach to certain things. If I want to overcome this, I've got to find my way out of it.
Yeah.
I did, on the advice of my stepfather, I did try and see a psychotherapist. I didn't feel it was helpful because all they were doing is listening. I said, well, I don't need people to, I mean, yes, I did need people to listen, but I didn't want just people to listen and empathise, because I know what communication's about. I actually wanted solutions, and I didn't think that they were forthcoming solutions. So I thought, you know what, I just need to navigate this on myself. And this is what I did. I went through trial and error. I looked at certain things. I almost did a complete audit of my life after a few days so I got a bit more clarity. I had a complete audit of my life. What are the areas that are stressing me out the most? What have I done up to this point, and what can I do differently? And it was literally just a process of just trial and error, which has got me from where I was then to where I am now, and that's on another level.
How did you get to the mindset to actually want to make that positive change? Because I think a lot of people don't even know that when you're in that burnout moment, you actually can't even bring yourself to look for a solution or reflect or do any of these things.
Yeah, really great question. I'll tell you what happened. I didn't even think about mindset. The first thing I focused on was the finances. So I said, right, finances aren't working. I've got almost £1 million mortgage. It's largely interest only. My only plan at this moment in time is to work harder, work all the hours God sends, not see my family, not see my kids, probably end up divorced. So the first thing I need to do is actually work out what I can do differently. So it's really interesting, because at that point I had a chat with a consultant colleague, in just an informal chat, just about money. I was complaining about money, how things weren't working, how I felt a bit stressed because I took on a new mortgage. And he actually said to me, this is coming up to our 10-year wedding anniversary, funnily enough, and we decided to go away to Tenerife for 5 days. And it really was kind of a make or break situation, because my wife wasn't happy at that time. I was quite aggressive, I was quite rude, and she didn't really I didn't feel she supported me, but it's not her fault. It's just the fact that we're just misaligned in terms of what our outlook was. So he suggested 2 books. He said, just read 2 books, and then once you've had your break, come back and we'll have a chat about it. So I started to read the books. The books were Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. So I went away to Tenerife, beautiful hotel. It was actually really nice to get away anyway, nice environment. And the T. Harv Eker book in particular opened the area about mindset. And what he's looking at in his book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone actually looking into tapping into mindset, is actually he's looking at what is the mindset of millionaires compared to everyone else. Because if you want to become a millionaire or you want to become wealthy, then they've got a certain mindset that we can all learn from.
Yeah.
And that is where the whole issue about mindset came in. And they got really interested in that.
And what would you say was the mindset that you had automatically? You mentioned earlier survival mindset. What was the mindset that you automatically were given as, or kind of developed as a doctor?
Yeah.
And that kind of is just taught intuitively for clinicians, consultants.
Yeah, so that's again a really, really important point and a great question. So when we're looking at mindset, we're looking at a mindset where if you're in a survival mindset, you're not necessarily acting in the way that is consistent with your values and beliefs, because you're worried about what other people think about you. The feeling of comparing yourself to other colleagues, the feeling of not being good enough. Usually, when we look at all of the areas which lead to what we call a survival mindset, it usually relates to one of two narratives that we often tell ourselves, which are often based on our past experiences. So the one narrative is, I'm not good enough. So that could be not even in medicine, that could be even in our childhood. When we go through life, we have a collection of experiences every day. A lot of those experiences shape the way we are, the way we think about things, the way we perceive things. And a lot of that is buried into our subconscious mind. So not feeling good enough. And
with not feeling good enough, because I think a lot of clinicians, a lot of doctors won't necessarily be walking around thinking, I'm not good enough. It kind of, it manifests, it shows in a bit of a different way. How does that show up in your life if you have this mindset, but you don't necessarily actively think I'm not good enough?
Yeah, right. Okay, so really important. So you're feeling not good enough and also feeling being judged by others. So first of all, you're not going to be self-compassionate. You're not going to be confident, because you're not good enough, right? Okay, so I've got a good idea. Well, it won't fly because I'm not good enough, because other people do these.
Is that a thought process that you would frequently have at the time? Kind of I might try this, or it won't work out.
What, when I was burnt out?
Yeah, how did it show up for you? How did you know that you have this thought of I'm not good enough?
I'm not entirely sure whether it's I'm not good enough. It's actually the second narrative. The second narrative is no one loves me.
Yeah.
Right, and this is really, I think, which played out in my medical career. Because what happened, I went to university. I didn't fit in, I'll be honest with you. So there was so when we went to university, everyone kind of mixes with certain people. People form friendship circles. I was always the one that got on with everyone, but I didn't really fall into a friendship circle. At the end of the first year, I got really stressed because everyone was pairing up with each other or grouping up with each other when they came to live in student houses, and I didn't. And I had to I was really stressed because I said, well, who am I going to live? I don't want to live on my own. And that was the early start of feeling not good enough. It actually goes even further back, because when I was at school, my biology teacher said, I don't think you're good enough to get into medicine.
Wow.
Right, okay. And I failed. I didn't get into medicine first time. I got ABC at A level. And that wasn't good enough. The grades weren't good enough to get into medical school. And so that was the start of it. Then not being able to form friendship circles. And yeah, listen, one thing led to another, lots of other examples along the way. But then you're working in a system where everything's wrong. So if there's an unintended patient outcome, the default is that you're wrong. And we need to put a system in process. They say it's not a blame culture. How do you define that?
Yeah.
Because okay, maybe superficially it's not a blame culture, but often even the NHS has got this default survival mindset, because what they do is when something happens, the automatic thing is something's wrong and needs fixing.
Yeah.
If you actually go away from that, does everything need fixing, or are things just the way they are? And actually what's more important is actually to understand why certain things happen in a very non-judgmental way. The problem working in a healthcare system is that you're being judged every day. Okay, the responsibility that comes with the job as well. If things go wrong, the buck stops with you and you're being judged every day. If you try something which is against standard practice, even though you've got good rationale for it, and things go wrong, that's going to come back on you, which is why a lot of colleagues practice what we call defensive medicine, because the system just doesn't allow for that growth. So what I think when it comes to survival mindset, I think it's just human nature. So, we are all designed to survive. That's the way we are wired as human beings. and it all relates to our survival when we're all living in the forests, and we want to avoid a lion attack and things like that. But what happens now is that the wiring, the stress response that comes with that survival mindset, then we come into the world and we interact with people and things every day. We have lots of different experiences, and it's that survival mindset that just literally just shapes us bit by bit, day by day, into the point where we feel that we're not good enough or no one loves us. And that stops us from taking risks, taking bold action, doing whatever's necessary. And we always go as human beings for short-term comfort. Yeah. We want to avoid pain. But what we need to do, if you really want to be fulfilled and live the best life possible and most fulfilled life possible, is that we need to say, this is my human brain kicking in here. My life is not at risk. And actually, I just need to go out there and I just need to do whatever's necessary to get to where I need to get to.
And so how did you then start unpeeling that survival mindset? You kind of find out, you have the awareness that you've got this. What then happens?
What, in my journey?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened there is one thing led to another. I read the books. My colleague then said, you must join, why don't you consider joining this education program that I'm part of, which teaches you to be how to invest and trade in US stocks and cryptocurrencies, because that was the money angle, don't forget to begin with. They bring in the concept of mindset. They do mindset training themselves within this company, this business that does this. They're amazing, by the way. And then I took it a step further, and the same colleague recommended me to do the Landmark Forum. Now, I don't know, do you know what the Landmark Forum is? No, so Landmark Forum, they're a company. They've been around for 40 years. I think must be over 3.5 million people have gone that, have gone through. Yeah. Their entry-level program is the Landmark Forum. And what this does, over 3.5 days, is it gets you to really explore and go on a journey of self-discovery. To really explore your life, look at the areas which are holding you back, the areas where you have developed that survival mindset, and break free from that. Because what they teach you is that who we are today has got nothing to do with our past. And once we detach that, all that baggage that we're carrying around with those narratives that I'm not good enough and no one loves me, you can conceptualize that and actually break free from that, and then live in the world of possibility, where whenever you encounter something, you can separate what is fact, what is your mind telling you, and live in the world of possibility, what's possible. And that was the biggest game changer doing the Landmark Forum for me. And
so then what happened after you did the Landmark Forum? How did your kind of career change, or how did your perception change your career?
Well, it's everything. Because, well, first thing I really vouch for that. So I did some of their advanced courses. I did their advanced course. I did some of their leadership training. And then I thought to myself, right, okay, a massive weight's now lifted, and now I can explore what I want to do. Now, what I recognised, and this was actually, you know what, it's just about a year ago, to be honest with you. What I recognised a year ago, having gone through a lot of their training and developed that mindset and having that self-awareness as to what was holding me back, I then thought to myself, hang on a minute, 3 years ago, I wasn't suicidal. There are doctors that are suicidal or have suicidal thoughts. There are doctors that go to alcohol, turn to alcohol or drugs, and there are services that help them with that, and that almost certainly relates to it. There are many struggling doctors there. The NHS, the actual culture of the NHS is very much a survival mindset. And actually, whose benefit is that? Health professionals are stressed and burnt out. The NHS, everyone says that the NHS is broken because of the way it acts. And the government are trying to, it's such a complex organisation, it's very difficult to make sweeping changes. But think about it, the NHS England was dissolved only a few months ago. One of the reasons the government gave was that it was highly bureaucratic. So there's some awareness, some sort of superficial level awareness. But I thought to myself, well, if I'm just a doctor and I'm just going to see patients, I'm only just giving value to that one individual patient I'm seeing. How can I provide my unique insight and experiences to add value on a much wider scale? And then I looked at my burnout story, and I don't. I mean, I'm sure you've spoken to people that have been burnt out.
Absolutely.
It's one of the worst feelings in the world. You wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy because it's so isolating, it's demeaning, you feel worthless, and at the end of the day, doctors are highly intelligent, highly driven people, and it actually really upsets me to see so many colleagues struggling in a system which they're finding difficult to work within.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I've got a unique insight here. I've actually gone through a journey. Yes, there's certain things that I did in that journey which didn't work, but there's certain things that did work. And can I tap into the things that work for me? And can I guide other colleagues who are maybe not even burnt out, maybe just feeling frustrated with the system or stressed? And can I lead them to actually overcome the challenges that I once faced 3 years ago, to unleash their unique insight and their unique ability?
Yeah.
And I think once you do that, let's suppose you have every doctor, every health professional that has that way of being, the NHS doesn't have any issues. Everyone's working together, everyone's happy, everyone's fulfilled. The amount that this can do in terms of this space, the more people that tap into this space, the more people overcome that survival mindset into that growth mindset, the more the likely is that the NHS changes. And I genuinely believe that the best way to transform the NHS is to transform the staff within it.
And how did you start approaching your work within the NHS differently with the growth mindset? Because you kind of say that in the NHS there's this bureaucracy, there's the politics. How do you exist within that system with a different mindset?
It's really difficult. And this is the thing. A few years ago, even about a year ago, I'll be honest with you, there's certain things that really stress me out. They really piss me off. I'm being sorry for the language. Okay, I get really frustrated about certain things. I'll give you an example. I'm an educational supervisor for trainees. I've been doing it for 10 years. They've brought in regulations that I need to have educational appraisals and undergo 40 hours worth of training to become an educational appraiser.
Wow.
40 hours. What is the point? Okay, where's that evidence that those 40 hours are really going to make me the most amazing? They don't do it. They don't do it because there's someone up in the higher centres that comes up with a rule to make them look good, or maybe the organisation to look good. Again, survival mindset, we all have to look good on paper. There's no justification for someone that's done that. And I've got a choice. Do I actually do that, just tolerate, toe the line, do those 40 hours and keep that, or do I give it up? Now, I had a really heated debate with a few colleagues about this. Some of them didn't see eye to eye with me. That's fine, I don't mind. I actually think it's healthy to have differing opinion.
So what is the other perspective here?
Well, so the choice I have there is, first of all, can I challenge that?
Yeah.
Well, I can't, because who do I go to?
Yeah.
If I go to an organisation, I have to go through whatever I try to do, I'm just one person.
Yeah.
The best people to actually do that are someone like the BMA. Are they going to do that? Well, then you've got to get how can I reach the relevant people in the BMA? It's just too long a line to actually do that. So the fact of the matter is, you have to accept that change is not possible.
Yeah.
Or change is possible, but is it worth the time and energy sacrifice? In my answer, no.
Yeah.
So then I've got to change. Well, do I say, well, sod you, I'm not doing that anymore? Or do I toe the line and just do it anyway, the 40 hours? And if I say I'm not doing it anymore, then I've got to do extra clinical work. And actually, my time is probably going to be spent. I'll probably spend more time doing clinical work than I can doing that as well. So at the moment, I'll be honest with you, I haven't decided what I'm going to do. This is still like in the air for me. I haven't done any of the mandatory training, but I recognise that I have to make that decision. And there is not an ideal situation, because I think I do enough clinical work. I don't really want to do any more clinical work. But it seems like I'm cornered, because I love actually chatting to resident doctors, trainees.
Yeah.
What I love about the process is not even that. When I see a trainee, I say, well, forget about the paperwork. Let's just have a chit chat. I'm really interested to know what lights you up, what you're passionate about, what are you trying to achieve in your career. And it's amazing. They find that so much more valuable than how many appraisals have you done, how many, have you got patient feedback, have you got staff feedback, tick, 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 tick. It's just meaningless, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
And did you ever consider going down the private practice route?
Yeah, I do. That's another interesting thing. So you go down the private practice. Why do you go down the private practice route? Because the pay associated with the NHS standard NHS contracts is reasonable, but is it aligned to what expectations I had and other people have as to what a consultant life looks like to them? I mean, having 2 kids living in London is really expensive. Our kids don't even go to private school. So part of me is actually saying, well, actually, I need to do more work in the private sector because of that. But the issues with the private sector, they've got certain other issues, because a lot of the pay that you get from first of all, is high expenses, high indemnity. If you're using a billing company, you've got to pay those expenses as well. And also, a lot of the fees that you're getting for the private work are often dictated by private medical insurance companies like Bupa and AXA. And for some reason, they've got doctors into this loophole where they're dictating how much you're worth and how much they're willing to pay you in exchange for you signing up to them and being fee assured. So when I became a consultant, I thought, well, I want to do private work. I need to be fee assured. So I have to sign a contract with Bupa to say that I'll fall in line with their fee schedule and fee policy. Now, that fee schedule and fee policy has recently gone up, but it hadn't changed in 20 years, up to about a year or so ago. And when you consider inflation, that's a massive pay erosion. So again, colleagues feel trapped. If they feel that the only way for them to have the lifestyle they're accustomed to by working harder is to work through extra private work, and they're getting paid by Bupa or AXA or Vitality or whatever insurance company, maybe something like, I don't know, £350 for something which is going to take 6-7 hours to complete, and you've got to pay your expenses on that, and you've got to pay your taxes on that. But colleagues feel, well, this is the only way. So what do? They just increase the volume of work that they do. And then what happens to the work-life balance? Well, they're never at home.
And just backtracking slightly, you said earlier when you started doing the landmark forum work, that a huge weight was kind of lifted off your shoulders. You started realizing these things. What did you think? What do you think that was consisted of? Why did you feel that weight lift off of you?
Well, that's a really great question. First of all, what you do, it's probably intense therapy. I don't know I'm not a therapist, but what they do is, if you've had a fallout with someone, you need to get complete with that. So they're saying, this is what's happened. And they train you in a way to have conversations with people without getting, really they're training you in emotional intelligence. How can you become really highly emotionally intelligent so you recognize when you're triggered, because we're all triggered, when you recognize when other people are triggered, and when you're not getting into conflict, because what they teach you and what they train is that an opinion is an opinion, and it doesn't have to be judged. And where conflict happens is when one opinion is supposedly more valid than another opinion. Now, if you actually separate those and say, look, anyone is capable of having an opinion, I'm going to just listen in. I'm going to get curious about it. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to impose that I'm right and they're wrong. Because that causes conflict and that causes relationship breakdowns. So actually curiosity builds connection, but disagreement leads to disconnection. So that's one of the things that I try to embed into communication skills training when I tried to launch it a few months ago. So that's one thing you do. So you learn how to communicate with people in a different way. The other thing is that if you have got any grievance with someone, that you just go ahead and you just confront them, and it's really uncomfortable. For example, one of the tasks that I had to do, I had a fallout with my mother-in-law. I swore at her, I shouted expletives at her, I slammed the door, I disrespected her in her own house, and I hadn't really had a relationship with her since then. So in the landmark forum, the first thing I had to do was actually, she was on holiday, she was in Mallorca at the time, is we had a break and I called her and I basically had it out with her, and I said, look, I recognise what's happened here. Okay, what I'm doing, what the way I've been has led to this. The impact has been this. What I see for the future, or what's possible, is actually we have a really great mother-son-in-law relationship, and we can be really happy as a family. And she was blown away, actually. She thought, oh my God, that must be such a difficult thing to do. But importantly, the great thing about the forum is that there's a community there. So everyone is sharing their stories and their opinions. So you might go there and you think, oh, I'm really not comfortable doing this. But the more you hear people sharing their stories, sharing their breakthroughs, sharing their breakdowns, because things don't always go the way we want them to, and you get coached in that forum as well, the more confident you are to do it. But at the end of the day, what you're doing there is you're going from survival to growth mindset by confronting fear and discomfort, which is what this is all about, isn't it? It's to try and get that growth mindset. So this was I would highly recommend. I'm no commission or anything like that, but I highly recommend that colleagues could do a lot worse and to explore what that type of training gives them. I'm not saying that Landmark, it has to be Landmark. There are probably other training bodies. I can only talk about my experience, but it's about not only taking uncomfortable action, but also, really importantly, having that supportive community. Because when things don't go according to plan, or when you are called by names under the sun and you feel belittled in a conversation, the conversation might not go well, you're bringing that to all the people that are in the same boat as you that want to develop, and you're getting supported by that, and you're being coached by that. And so it's almost like everyone's on this journey of self-discovery and breaking free from their past to live an amazing life, and genuinely believe that this is the key, I think, to living a really fulfilled life.
That's incredible. And then this is my last question, but we touched on this earlier, but that fear of judgment within the medical community and medical space. Considering that, I think this experience that you've had and the burnout is actually something that's pretty common in the medical world. Why do you think there is such a fear of judgment? And you touched on this earlier with kind of this blame culture, but also this fear of being vulnerable, telling colleagues, having these connections that are more authentic and kind of real.
Yeah, so I think that's quite a complex topic, but I think generally speaking, a lot of people are in the survival mindset. When you're in the survival mindset and you're feeling stressed and burnt out, you're less compassionate towards yourself. And importantly, you're less compassionate towards other people. So when someone comes up with an opinion about something and your opinion's different, very easy if you're less compassionate because you're facing your own frustrations and stress to not show that compassion and just go. The default human mindset there is just like, just go at them. Go into that fight or flight. Because they've said something that's really triggered you, and actually you've got to put your point across because you're right and they're wrong. There's a lot of that in medicine. And I think the first thing that can happen, genuinely believe it, the key for all of this is forget about, okay, fine. Medical training has to stop being conducted in a way that is series of tick box exercise, know a diagnosis, what's the treatment plan, it's all superficial. What we really need doctors to do is to have high skills in emotional intelligence, number one, and number two, show really high authentic leadership, starting from the top. And actually, listen, at the end of the day, we are not when we work in our work environment, we're not working in silo. All of us have a life. We all have a personal life. We all have struggles. I don't believe for 1 minute people are living completely stress-free. There's always a certain stress or strain. Now, understandably, some people don't want to talk about it. And I'm not saying that everyone should just literally lay everything open because again, that's a very courageous thing to do. But I think I think leaders can start really by actually saying, look, we're human beings at the end of the day. And if they do share that vulnerability and openness and not judging colleagues, and again, that's not just people, it's about the systems and the processes. Get rid of the systems and processes that label people or blame people or judge people. Get rid of all of that. That's the best way to start developing that growth mindset. That is massive. I don't even know if that's possible, but one of the visions for my company, my startup company, Medics in Control, the vision is to transform the NHS by transforming its staff so literally everyone benefits. Because when you get a system, when you get staff that are fulfilled and are happy, when you've got a system that works, what's going to happen? Staff are going to be more compassionate, they're going to be more passionate, they're going to be more fulfilled, they're going to feel that they're contributing in a meaningful way. That's 100% almost certainly going to relate to much better patient care, much better patient outcomes, and everyone wins. Yeah,
that's incredible. Thank you so much, Jamie. Is there anything else, do you think, that we haven't covered there?
There's always stuff that we haven't covered. What do you think we haven't covered?
I think we've gone over the main topics, but I guess maybe one thing that
if I could say, okay, because it's actually relevant to what I'm saying, what I've recognised is that doctors need, if they want to start a personal development journey, and I'd highly encourage people to do that. Yes, you can go to Landmark Forum, but what I think people need to do is they need to develop a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Right? And I've worked really hard, have a lot of thought gone into this. What I do in Medics in Control, my company, is we're launching a pilot program in a few weeks' time to get people to build that solid foundation. And I thought, well, what's the best way to get people to actually see it for themselves and appreciate and recognize it? Yeah. And I think there are 4 key areas which can help people get from that survival mindset to that growth mindset. Or even further, get them from that feeling dissatisfied and stressed towards feeling passionate, feeling that they've got purpose, and feeling just generally happier. Yeah. So those 4 areas, number 1 is clarity and purpose. So doing an audit of your life, looking at what is working in your life at the moment, what is not working, and what does the ideal look like in 3 to 5 years' time? And more importantly, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to be talking about in your funeral? Yeah. Okay, that defines who we are. And the great thing about this is that we're all different. And what you get inspired by, I won't, and vice versa. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a mindset. So going from that survival mindset to growth mindset, which we talked extensively in this interview. The third thing is financial growth. And now this is something which is almost exclusively ignored in stress and burnout programs. But at the end of the day, money is crucial because we live in a society which is dictated by money. Yeah. You can't ignore money. And what does money, it's not the money which is the important thing here. Money is just a tool. But what money buys you is time and freedom and choice. And therefore, if we are, for example, we've got aspirations to do something amazing, and we get a lot of energy from doing something really creative, but that's outside medicine. But we can't tap into that. We can't spend time doing that because we can't afford to, because we've got to pay the bills. Then we need to really explore the importance of financial growth. Yeah. And what we all need to be tapping into is what is the fastest way that we can all become financially independent, so we don't have to worry about money, and therefore we're completely free to live the life exactly what we want to live. Yeah. So financial growth, so that's a third component. And the fourth component is time management. So time is our greatest resource, because it's the only resource that once it's gone, you can't get it back. And we can use our time in one of 2 ways. We can either use our time in traction, which is using time spent towards our goals and towards the areas that are going to fulfill us, or distraction, which is going to be spent time wasted on things that are not going to serve us. So just to give you an example, we live in a digital world at the moment. There's content flying around all over the place. How many times, I'm guilty of it as well, how many times do we come home from work and we are literally doom scrolling on social media without any intention? All of a sudden, 3 hours later, it's time to go to bed. Yeah. Right, okay. Now, that might be aligned to someone who wants to find ideas to write content for someone who wants to be a content creator. But if we're doing it unintentionally, then what's the opportunity cost there? You know, maybe people could spend half an hour because it's a bit of a relaxation to them. Exactly. But for the other 2.5 hours, what else can they do? Yeah. Like, for example, if they're having marriage problems, can they spend an hour of that time actually being present with their partner without phones or TV? Yeah. And they have a conversation. How was your day? Yeah, it's fine. How was yours? Great. Tell me about what you learned. Let's share the experience together. That is actually intentional time, because I'm actually spending time on my marriage, right? So time management is there. So really, and all of those components interrelate. So it's clarity, purpose, number 1, mindset, number 2, financial growth, working towards financial independence so that we're completely freed up to spend the time exactly how we wish to spend it, and spending time in a way that's going to make us fulfilled, and it's going to lead us to the life that we want.